And at the same time, negotiators say that Israel and Hamas are getting close to a ceasefire deal once again. Let's hear more about the Middle East now. We bring in Avi Melamed to discuss this. He's a former Israeli intelligence official and former senior official on Arab affairs. Good morning. Good to see you again, Avi. So first, let's start with the ceasefire deal. A lot of talk about that again with quite some confidence this time as well. And it does feel like, though, that we've been here before. Tell me a little bit more of what's the difference this time in the confidence.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Well, as you said, it feels like we've been to this place before, but however, there is some difference. I would say that the major differences that we can point out at this point actually has to do not necessarily with the negotiations per se, but what happened around in the region, and particularly I'm talking about the what happened in Syria, the downfall of Assad, that actually escalates the whole disintegration of the Iranian-backed axis of resistance as we know it. As long as Hamas was under the impression that this axis is still functioning and actually could be used by Hamas as yet another card in the negotiation process, Hamas was kind of like digging heels into the ground. It seems like now that there is a recalculation within Hamas following those developments. And that's I would say, the major reason in my reading for the difference between this phase and previous phases that has been in a way similar, but still there is a difference.
So with those recalculation, as you just mentioned, do you think that both sides are more open to a deal at this point? It also, and to your point, it seems also like Hamas is willing to make some concessions and perhaps actually let Israel have military presence in Gaza, right? But do you think that is a both-sided, a greater willingness to come to a deal?
It seems like that at this point. I would say that also from an Israeli perspective, and particularly to be more accurate from the Israeli Prime Minister perspective, as well as the cabinet in Israel, there is a growing understanding that there must be some progress in that issue. The Israeli public opinion is enormously upset with the whole process of the negotiations. Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's now facing the trial, and actually we are now looking at what seems to be like the final phase in this very long saga of its trial. It seems to me like the Prime Minister Netanyahu also in a way kind of like would like to bring some sort of, or to show some sort of progress, even though his opponents actually argue that he has no real intention to end this war, meaning to do a done in one deal to bring all the hostages back, which seems to be like the case. But I think that in comparison to different phases, we talked earlier about Hamas, I think that also from an Israeli perspective, there is today some sort of like more willingness, I would say, within the policy and the decision makers in Israel to move forward to some sort of like a deal, even though if it's going to be apparently a stage down deal, sort of speaking, a partial deal, which for itself, of course, is good. But at the same time, we have to remember there are still many people that will be hostages that will still be left back in Gaza Strip, and Israeli public opinion is enormously upset about it.
Right, but it does seem like, based on what you're saying, that's a good thing. So the U.S. was also optimistic that there will actually be a deal by the end of this month. Now, that's just a few days away. Can you tell us a bit more of where things stand right now?
Well, there was a lot of reports coming in, and I don't know necessarily to say that those reports are accurately reflecting the real picture on the ground. I think that those reports are, in the best case scenario, are very partial. I think there is a lot of misinformation, and even I would say in some cases disinformation. But to the best of my understanding, what is now on the table is some sort of like a multi-phase process or arrangement or a deal in which, to the best of my understanding, in the first phase of this multi-phase process, they are going to release hostages, Israeli hostages, female, and those who are defined as a humanitarian condition. I know the most recent thing that came just this morning was that there is some sort of like a debate vis-a-vis the definition of humanitarian case, but it seems to be like, roughly speaking, that is the trajectory of the deal ahead. One of the major issues is that when you hear the the text of statements by Israeli politicians or those who are part of the government, they allude or indicate or suggest or hint that the second phase of the deal is going to be very difficult, as they say, in terms of the
Right.
prices that Israel is paying. But this is not new. We all understand that there is a very significant fee price involved in this whole process. The Israeli public opinion, I would say, roughly speaking, understand that and is willing to pay the price, because the bottom line, as far as Israeli public opinion is concerned, is to bring all the hostages back home as
Right.
soon as possible.
Right. So since we have a couple of seconds left, there is so much happening in the region. Let me talk about what happened after Syria's regime collapsed, because analysts have been also saying that there is a power shift now in the region that benefits Turkey and Israel. Could you just quickly touch on that and tell us what you see and if you agree?
Yes, the major winner out of the story of the downfall of Assad regime is Turkey, and Turkey is now expected to further expand its influence across the region. And Turkey already is present in the northern part of Syria. It also, by the way, present in the northern part of Iraq. And so it's expected that Turkey will use this opportunity to extend its influence. The fact that there are now Islamic affiliated forces that rules Syria is also playing to the hand of Turkey. Erdogan is coming from the same hub, the Sunni Islam political camp. And obviously, as far as Erdogan is concerned, he got now strong allies in Syria. We have to remember, Turkey was, to a large extent, the force beyond the offensive of the rebels in Syria that resulted in the downfall of Assad regime. One of the things that we know about Erdogan is that he's a very provocative leader, and it seems to be like that we should expect sometime down the road that Erdogan, similar in the way that he was monetizing the story of Gaza Strip to poke Israel, so to speaking, I will not be surprised if he start doing something similar in the context of the Israeli presence in the Golan Heights. By the way, also Arab states like Jordan, the Gulf monarchies, and Egypt are concerned because they know very well Erdogan's policy and his provocations. They are concerned that the backwind that the Sunni affiliated factors in Syria are gaining, and as well as Erdogan, will kind of like negatively impact on their inner arena. So we should definitely look very closely to see how Erdogan and Turkey are going to monetize this new situation in Syria.
Thank you so much. Also keep us up to date with that. Avi Melamed, I appreciate your time this morning as always.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.